and they talked for a little bit, and then they hung up, and shortly, maybe 15 minutes, he called again, and she told him she was leaving. I knew that something was wrong.
On December 13th, 1976, at 7:45 p.m., 16-year-old Carol Hutto received a phone call that filled her with happiness and excitement. After the call, she quickly told her mother, Norma Hutto, that she was heading to a nearby store, which was only a short 10-minute walk away, and would be back in about a half an hour. Little did her mother know it would be the last time she laid eyes on her beloved daughter. Carol never returned home after that.
It's simple, Jim. You're sorry or you did it intentionally. That's all I'm asking. I don't need... Jim, are you sorry you killed Carol? That's all I'm asking, Jim. You're sorry, aren't you?
Following this interrogation is a truth which took 24 long years to finally come to light. Who could be behind that mysterious call? How did Carol disappear suddenly without any trace? We'll delve into the 1976 cold case of Carol Hutto, a mystery which took a staggering 24 long years for the truth to come to light. Carol disappeared from Largo, Florida, a lively place known for its friendly community and sunny climate. This city is located in Pinellas County and has a blend of city comforts and beautiful natural surroundings. With a population of over 82,000 people, Largo has a long past and lots of fun things to do. It is a friendly place for people who live there and those who come to visit. But in 1976, a crime took place that changed everything here. Let's rewind the clock back in time to February 6, 1960, the very day a sweet little girl entered this world. Born to Edward and Norma Hutto in the cozy town of Largo, Florida, she was given the name Carol Dean Hutto. As the youngest in the family, she was showered with affection and attention by everyone. Growing up, Carol attended Largo High School, where her kind and gentle nature made her a beloved figure among her peers. Carol's family was quite a crew. She had a half-brother, Jerry Irwin Hutto, and while we don't know a lot about him, what was clear was that Carol and Jerry shared a close and special bond. Jerry deeply cared for his sister, and he always went out of his way to fulfill her wishes. Whatever Carol asked for, Jerry did his best to make it happen, showing the strong connection they had as siblings. Besides Jerry, Carol had 4 more siblings, 2 sisters, Pamela Beale Hutto and Melinda Darlene Hutto, and 2 other brothers, Maurice Barnett Hutto and Frank Hutto. Carol was a girl who brought joy to her family, especially her mother. They enjoyed doing activities like going to thrilling NASCAR races and exciting wrestling matches. Her mom fondly remembers her as a devoted Christian who chose her friends carefully. Carol had big dreams and a heart full of adventure, but sadly, she didn't get the chance to fully experience them and live those dreams. On December 13, 1976, Carol Hutto was spending time at her home on Corvette Drive with her mother, Norma, and her half-brother, 17 years old Jerry Irwin. Everything seemed like a usual evening. They were all enjoying themselves, sharing jokes and laughter. Norma was busy preparing dinner for the family, and Jerry was getting ready for a date. However, their evening took an unexpected turn when the phone in the house started ringing. Norma went to pick up the call, and it turned out to be Carol's friend on the line, so she handed the phone to Carol, and they spent a few minutes whispering to each other, but when Norma came back, she quickly ended the call. Strangely, after the call, Carol's mood took a sudden turn. She became incredibly happy and excited, which caught Norma's attention. Carol hurriedly went to her room, fixed her hair, and checked her appearance in the mirror. After about 15 minutes, she told her mom that she was heading to a store nearby, which was just a 10-minute walk away from their house. Even before Norma could ask what she needed from the store, Carol was already out the door. However, before leaving, Carol made a promise that she would be back soon. Later, Carol's half-brother Jerry also left the house for his date and said goodbye to Norma. The store was not too far away, and it usually took about 20 minutes or even less for Carol to walk there and back. So Norma expected Carol to return home in a half an hour. But after 1 hour had passed and Carol still hadn't come back, Norma started to wonder if Carol had bumped into her friends on the way and was chatting with them, which might be why she was taking longer. But after 2 hours had passed and Carol hadn't come back, Norma became even more anxious. It was getting dark outside, and Carol's absence was concerning because she had never missed her curfew before.
I knew when Carol didn't come home. In a couple of hours, like she said, I'll be back. I won't be gone long. I knew that something was wrong.
At around 10 p.m., when Jerry arrived home, Norma, deeply concerned, asked if she had seen Carol. However, Jerry was clueless about her whereabouts, just like Norma. Upon learning that Carol hadn't returned home since she left, Jerry became even more worried. Norma urged him to go out and search for her. He started combing the streets, calling out her name, but didn't receive any responses. He even went to the store near their house, where Carol was supposed to go. But the store staff mentioned that they hadn't seen her today, which led to the concerning questions of where Carol might be if she didn't go to the store as planned. Jerry sadly returned home and shared the unfortunate news with Norma that he couldn't find Carol anywhere. Despite their concern, they decided to wait until morning, hoping Carol might come back home on her own. However, as the morning sunlight arrived, Norma became even more anxious because there was still no sign of Carol. Without delaying any further, Norma decided to call the police to report Carol as missing. However, the police informed her that since less than 24 hours had passed since Carol went missing, they couldn't file a missing person report. At this point, they also considered the possibility that Carol might have run away from home.
She said, there's nothing we can do. Girls run away all the time. I tried to tell her that Carol didn't run away. She had nothing to run away from. She was happy. She didn't have any problems.
But Norma wasn't ready to accept that Carol would ever leave her home on her own or run away from her family. She had a strong feeling that something bad had happened to her daughter. Because of this, Norma and Jerry didn't want to sit and wait for the police to do something about it. They decided to take matters in their own hands and actively search for Carol themselves. They went around their neighborhood, talking to neighbors to see if anyone had seen Carol the previous night. Most of the neighbors remembered seeing Carol around 8 p.m. when she left home, but no one had spotted her coming back home that night. Norma and Jerry also visited all of Carol's friends' houses to find out if she had spoken to anyone or gone to their homes, but they couldn't find any trace of her. The sudden disappearance of Carol deeply affected Norma, and the entire community also came together after the news that their little Carol was missing to help in any way they could. At the same time, the police were also actively searching for Carol. They checked various stores, both nearby Carol's house and more distant, to see if she had visited any of them that night. Unfortunately, no one could confirm seeing her at any of those locations. The police noticed that there was a security camera outside the store that Carol was supposed to go. However, upon reviewing the footage, they couldn't find any evidence of Carol visiting the store on the night she disappeared. Back in those days, security cameras were not as common as it is today, so only a few stores had installed them, making it challenging to track Carol's movements. But it didn't take long for a tragic discovery to occur. On the evening of December 14th, 1976, Carol's half-brother Jerry stumbled upon her lifeless body under unusual circumstances. He had been searching the neighborhood on his own, desperately trying to find Carol. His search led him to the end of the street, near a building that was still under construction. This building was located at 418 Imperial Drive, close to a lake. It was there that Jerry claimed to have discovered Carol's body. The details surrounding how he came across her in the specific spot remained a mystery.
And I just kind of glanced out at the lake, and I saw some clothes and a raincoat, and I believe one shoe. It was over in this area right here. They were just floating in the water. So I turned and I started looking closer, and I looked down, and that's when I saw her face down in the water with cement blocks on top of her.
Carol's lifeless body was found floating in the water, her clothes partially removed. This sight was shocking and deeply disturbing for Jerry. He immediately contacted the Largo police to report the discovery. and then had the difficult task of returning home to inform Norma about the heartbreaking news.
How do you tell your parents that their baby daughter's in a lake face down? You just can't do it.
And I said, Jerry, what's wrong? And he just stared. And I got a hold of him and I said, Jerry, what's wrong? And he said, we got to go, Daddy. We got to get her.
When the police arrived, they carefully retrieved Carol's body from the lake to preserve any potential evidence. It became evident quite quickly that Carol's death wasn't accidental. The presence of injuries on her body and the concrete block used to submerge her indicated foul play, suggesting that someone intentionally killed her and attempted to hide her body. The police believed that the attack likely occurred at the under-construction house, and then her body was placed in the lake. A crucial clue was Carol's watch, which was stopped at 10:36 p.m., indicating the time of her murder was likely between 10:30 and 10:45 p.m. After Carol's lifeless body was sent for a thorough autopsy, some unsettling facts came to light. The coroner found that Carol had been strangled, which likely made her lose consciousness, but didn't kill her right away. Additionally, she had suffered from a blow to the head with a heavy object, resulting in a severe injury. Adding to the distressing findings, Carol also had a significant burn on her thigh. The medical examiner's report uncovered an even more horrifying detail. When Carol was thrown into the water and the heavy concrete block was placed over her body, she was still alive. Despite the harrowing circumstances, she remained conscious and tragically succumbed to drowning over time. During the examination of Carol's body, the coroner also discovered 3 long hairs that were of the same person but seemed to belong to someone other than her. Additionally, a 4th hair, unidentified and possibly belonging to the killer, was found on Carol's blue jeans. This discovery held the potential to be a crucial breakthrough in the case. However, the limitations of medical technology in the 1970s meant that not much could be done with the hairs at that time. So they were carefully stored away, awaiting the development of more advanced techniques that could help identify the person responsible for Carol's tragic fate. For a little while, the Largo police had their eyes on Jerry Irwin, Carol's half-brother, because he was also outside on the night Carol was killed. Even though Jerry said he was on a date, the police discovered he got done half an hour earlier than he claimed. This made them wonder, what was he doing during that time gap? The restaurant he went to was only about 8 minutes away from home, so why didn't he return home soon? The police started thinking that Jerry might be involved in Carol's death, since he couldn't provide an alibi for that time gap. They concentrated their investigation on him, but it didn't lead to any solid evidence. They couldn't find any proof that Jerry could have hurt Carol. Norma, Carol's mother, was convinced that Jerry cared deeply for his sister and would never hurt her. Despite their initial suspicion, the focus on Jerry didn't bring them any closer to the truth. After a while, the police cleared Jerry of suspicion as they couldn't find any more evidence against him. For the next 18 months, the police put a lot of effort into exploring every lead, but unfortunately they couldn't find any clues to solve the case, and the investigation only went in circles. As time went on, the investigation began to lose momentum, and the case grew cold. This left the Hutto family with aching questions. What really happened to Carol on that fateful night? Who was responsible for her death? They not only suffered the loss of their beloved daughter, but also the frustration of not finding justice for her. For almost 20 years, the mystery of Carol's murder remained unsolved, but in March 1994, a twist of fate brought a fresh set of eyes to the case. Officer Brad Hoyes, sidelined by a work injury, found himself poring over Coldcase files during his desk duty. As he sifted through the forgotten files, he stumbled upon the haunting details of Carol Hutto's murder case, reigniting a dormant investigation. As Officer Brad delved into the case, he sensed that there were hidden layers that hadn't received thorough scrutiny during the original 1976 investigation. Driven by his intuition, he made the bold decision to reopen the case and retrieved the evidence box that had been stowed away for years. Among the contents, he stumbled across Carol's personal diary. Officer Brad saw potential in those pages hoping the diary might hold the missing pieces needed to unravel the mystery of Carol's tragic end.
So I open it up, and it begins about a month before her death.
A few pages into the diary, Carol wrote about her secret romance with her classmate. It was back in 1976 when Carol was 16 years old. She had a major crush on a 17-year-old boy, James Brian Kuhn, born July 20th, 1959, also known as Jimmy Kuhn. They both were juniors at Largo High School and used to talk to each other all the time at school. The whispers of their closeness spread among the school corridors, but they chose to play it cool and never openly acknowledged their relationship. It was Kuhn who asked Carol to keep the relationship a secret, as his family was really strict, so they decided to hide it from everyone. At one point, Carol also claimed that she was so in love with Kuhn.
I finally got to a point where it said, I met Jimmy at the lake, and it just was too close to home. That's where her body was found. It was right next to the house that we believe the crime occurred in.
Kuhn was also among the attendees at Carol's funeral, who appeared genuinely sorrowful and far from a suspect. In 1976, during the initial investigation, Kuhn was also questioned as a friend of Carol, and he claimed he hadn't seen or spoken to her on the night of the murder, asserting that he was at home the entire time. However, in 1994, when Coldcase detectives revisited the case, they spotted a discrepancy between Kuhn's statements and what the Hutto family had originally told the police. They revealed that on the fateful night of December 13, 1976, Carol had received a phone call from none other than Jimmy Kuhn.
I answered the phone, and he said, Mrs. Hutto, this is Jim. Can I speak to Carol? And I said, yes, just a minute. And they talked for a little bit, and then they hung up, and shortly, maybe 15 minutes, he called again, and she told him she was leaving.
By this time, Kuhn was 34 years old and had become a father to a daughter. Following his graduation, he pursued a path in the U.S. Navy, where he achieved significant success. His military career was marked by his role as a submariner, stationed at the U.S. Naval Submarine Base in Connecticut. Largo Detective Sergeant Mike Short, age 43, had a personal connection to the case. He too had attended the same Largo High School as Kuhn and Carol, so when he got to know about the case, he took the lead in investigating Carol's murder. Working alongside him was Lieutenant John Carroll, who is currently Largo's deputy chief. In a bold move, they made an unexpected trip to Connecticut, where Kuhn, an 11-year military veteran, was stationed. During this encounter, Kuhn's story drastically changed. He contradicted his earlier statements and confessed that he had indeed seen Carol on the night of her disappearance.
What I want to know is, were the two of you together that night? And was she okay when you left? That's what I want to know. Yes.
He admitted that he had been with Carol on the night she went missing. That was a significant admission. And we knew at that time we had our suspect.
He barely remembered anything, Sergeant Mike Short recalled. According to Mike, Kuhn explained, "I put up walls. If I remember, I'm going to jail." These words left a strong impression on Mike, leading him to believe that he had identified Carol's killer. However, the following day, Kuhn changed his stance. He sought legal advice, refused further interviews, and declined to take a polygraph test. The police and prosecutors faced a challenge as they lacked enough evidence to definitively prove that Kuhn was the one who had killed Carol on the night of December 13, 1976. Convicting him of first-degree murder seemed unlikely. Due to the statute of limitations, anything less than first degree might result in Kuhn going free. However, the evidence box held an even more intriguing discovery. Among the items in the box, Detective Mike came across a collection of unfamiliar hairs, retrieved from both Carol's body and the crime scene, and these hairs had been diligently preserved. During the late 1980s, a pivotal moment in forensic science emerged, which was the utilization of DNA testing to establish whether someone was guilty or innocent in criminal investigations. As the 1990s progressed, the approach shifted towards examining mitochondrial DNA, which resides in small structures within human cells and is more likely to endure the test of time. Given these advancements, Mike was eager to conduct a genetic test on the hairs to potentially unveil the true identity of the perpetrator. However, there was a problem. They didn't have a sample of Kuhn's DNA, which was a crucial element for the testing. To obtain this vital piece of evidence, the detectives needed to obtain Kuhn's blood through a legal search warrant. With this plan in mind, they aimed to maximize the time spent with the suspect and decided to proceed strategically.
If we're going to serve a search warrant on Jimmy Kent, then use that opportunity for an interrogation as well.
In 1998, Detective Mike decided to bring in the reinforcements in the form of the Naval Criminal Investigation Service, or NCIS. They thought the presence of naval officials might make Kuhn nervous and lead him to a confession. On July 15, 1998, Detective Mike waited outside the police interrogation room while Navy investigators Tom Azimos and Dave Early sat down with their murder suspect, James Kuhn. After obtaining the necessary warrant, they first collected a blood sample from Kuhn for further testing. Then Azimos and Early began their conversation with Kuhn, aiming to make him feel supported and comfortable. Their goal was to build trust so that he might open up and gradually reveal the truth.
Simple, Jim. You're sorry or you did it intentionally. That's all I'm asking. I don't need... Jim, are you sorry you killed Carol? That's all I'm asking, Jim. You're sorry, aren't you? I can say you're sorry, Jim. That's all it's going to take.
We know that you didn't mean for this to happen, did you?
You didn't do this intentionally, did you? It was a mistake, right? You didn't plan it. Jim? It's a mistake, wasn't it, Jim? It's an accident. That's what we need to explain.
Brother, you just got to get it out. Get on with it.
At this moment, the NCIS agents were confident that Kuhn was on the verge of disclosing what happened on the night of December 13, 1976. Surprisingly, without any solid proof, they managed to make Kuhn break down as he wiped away his tears and finally revealed the heartbreaking truth about how he killed his girlfriend, Carol Hutto.
It was an accident. The only reason I went to the lake was to try to cover it up.
I
Send
understand.
it somewhere else.
I understand, Jim. We understand that. How did she get hurt in the house?
We were playing around and started chasing each other. She tripped and fell.
Okay. What happened then?
She's unconscious. I didn't hear a heartbeat or anything. And I tried to cover it up like it was something else or somebody else.
What did you do then?
So when I took her clothes off,
Okay.
and I took her out by the lake.
What'd you do with her down by the lake?
Well, I put her in the water. I just put a bunch of rocks on top of her and then I took off.
Although Kuhn appeared emotional, the experienced Coldcase detectives weren't convinced of his honesty. The injuries Carol sustained, particularly to her neck and head, didn't align with a simple accident like tripping and falling. Instead, the nature of these injuries indicated blunt force trauma and strangulation. However, Kuhn had confessed to causing Carol's death. Although he claimed it was an accident, he took the responsibility for her demise, explaining that he failed to help her and attempted to conceal both the evidence and her body. As a result, Kuhn was taken into custody and anticipated his trial. However, on the eve of his trial, he presented a new version of events. In his alternative version of events, Kuhn initially claimed that there were no physical interactions between him and Carol, even though he wanted it. However, things took a different turn when Carol disagreed, and their disagreement escalated into a physical confrontation. Carol started screaming and fighting back by scratching and hitting him. Fearing her screams would draw attention, Kuhn struck her with a 2x4 piece of wood and even tightened his grip around her throat. When he finally let go, Carol fell to the floor, unconscious. Kuhn was panicked and unsure, so he made a hasty decision to hide her body. He also tried to create confusion by burning her thigh, hoping it would appear as though someone else had attacked her. Regardless of the details in Kuhn's different versions of events, detectives arrived at the same conclusion, that Carol had been assaulted, taken to the lake, and thrown face down. Her body was weighed down with a concrete block to keep it submerged. Interestingly, the second story Kuhn shared appeared more plausible and aligned better with the evidence discovered. This version of events seemed to match the physical evidence and circumstances surrounding Carol's tragic fate. As the trial day arrived on February 9, 2000, the prosecutors aimed for a first-degree murder conviction against Kuhn. His lawyers acknowledged that he had some involvement in the crime, but they argued that a more fitting verdict could be manslaughter or even third-degree murder. When the jury received the case, they took just 22 minutes to deliberate before reaching a verdict. Kuhn was found guilty of first-degree murder.
Case number 98-12339, I do adjudicate Mr. Ken guilty. I sentence him to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years.
There's a chance that Kuhn could experience freedom once more. Due to the fact that the crime occurred in 1976, Pinellas Pasco Circuit Court Judge Philip Federico applied the state laws from that year. These laws allow someone convicted of first-degree murder to be considered for parole after 25 years. Interestingly, Kuhn chose not to address the court during the sentencing. But Norma Hutto, Carol's mother, felt the need to address Kuhn. She expressed how Carol had trusted him and called him out, saying, "James Kuhn, you took the trust Carol gave you, and you used it for your depraved wants." Norma's words did not stop there. She pointed out that Kuhn had attended Carol's funeral, pretending to be upset and acting like her friend, while hiding his true intentions. Norma hoped that he would never leave prison and didn't deserve a chance to start anew, emphasizing that he had taken that chance away from her daughter. Norma, a mother with high hopes for her young daughter Carol, had envisioned a bright future. She eagerly anticipated the day when Carol would proudly graduate from Largo High School. She had dreams of seeing her 16-year-old wearing a stunning white dress, walking down the aisle to embark on a joyful journey with her husband, and maybe even starting a family. However, all those dreams were shattered in a single night, and strongly desired that Kuhn would remain in prison forever, never to be released. So, let's talk about Kuhn's case. What are your thoughts on whether he deserved a life sentence or not? And do you think he was really sorry about what he did? And do you believe Kuhn's actions towards Carol were accidental, or was it all planned out? We'd love to hear from you. If there's a case you'd like us to cover, don't hesitate to drop your recommendations in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled for the next mystery to unfold.